Brad, thank you so much for joining me today. So excited to be here with you and Org Vitals to launch the kickoff of the new workplace culture survey. And this is something like we've never done before. So just as a teaser, this survey was designed because of the situation that we're in, because so much has changed, because the pandemic has driven out traditional workplace culture. And now we're in this remote hybrid kind of virtual first. What is culture now? And so Brad and Charlie and I were talking and we said, we've got to get some research on this. We got to get some data on who owns culture now in this weird new state. Brad, what would you say?
Yeah, man, like that is an incredible place for us to be right now. Like the fact that we're asking the question around like who owns culture, right? And what is that going to mean for the future of work, and how is that work going to feel, and what's it going to look like, and what are we going to be doing, and how are people going to be collaborating, and are we going to be hybrid or remote or both or in person? And man, I'm just so excited about what we might be able to find out, and then share back with folks about who owns culture, and then what is culture going to be mean? Like, what does it mean going forward?
Yeah. And it's a provocative title on purpose, but there's a real heart and soul behind it. I know on one hand, somebody could hear that title and go, I can't believe you just said that. That's just, what are you trying to start something? And then on the other hand, I think you could go, culture's undeniably different now. Oh. Who owns it when it isn't in the confines of the building anymore? And people are trying to figure out what is what on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's pertinent and relevant for us to start asking the question and talking to people to go get this data. And let me just give you a couple of signs of how much culture has changed. Get this. Culture is no longer in the building. Culture has left the building, right? And there's a cultural layer cake of the pandemic, the health conditions, remote, hybrid, virtual first, and now great resignation, great migration, no longer have access to the typical in-person events, symbols, rituals, practices, and customs because you're all remote. And then leaders haven't met many of the people on their teams, some not at all, even after a couple of years. Yeah. Right. And then you have leaders trying to navigate all the business needs as they're reinventing their business, while culture is dramatically changing all around it. And let's not forget that digital transformation is changing the relationship of way employees work with technology and what technology is doing inside of organizations. Yeah. All of this stuff is in season 2 or in season 3 of Going Down. So, Brad, from your perspective, what are you seeing on all that?
Well, first of all, I thought this was like maybe the pandemic would last like 2 weeks, right? Like 2 weeks, we're over, I'm back in work, like things are fine. It's going to be an awesome vacation. And then like 9 months later, I'm like, this is not going away. I mean, and to your point, right? Like everything about how we do our work has shifted and changed. Everything from the things that I need to balance on a day-to-day basis, like how do I make coffee? Who gets breakfast done? How do I navigate my workplace situation? How do I check my emails? When do I check my emails? When these things happen, everything about that has changed. And it's felt a little bit different. And I think the challenge with this is our brains are wired to handle a change in a certain increment. And everything changed at the same time. Everything became different overnight for so many people. And man, it wasn't that I didn't care about this project or that project. It was that I was trying to juggle everything around me and try to make sense of it. And I wasn't disengaged, but man, I was maybe distracted sometimes because I've got my daughter tugging on my shirt that she's hungry and wants a snack. And my wife's downstairs trying to teach kindergarten, and my daughter's doing 4th grade math. And I haven't done 4th grade math in 25 years. And it's different now. And also I've got this meeting, and I don't know. I wasn't overnight equipped to handle that. Now I think some of that stuff is leveling out, and beginning to have conversations about how that feels and what that looks like, and putting boundaries. But the artifacts, the ways of working, the norms, the rituals, those things look and feel different now. And frankly, maybe they should. And that's okay. I think at some point, like, we might need to give ourselves permission that this way of working is okay, and we can work together to co-create spaces that allow collaboration. I think that's one thing that's really important for leaders to focus in on, is the decisions that we're making about culture right now should be those decisions that help us collaborate intentionally in the best way possible. And however that looks, that's where we need to be grounding ourselves.
Brad, what I love about that is when you say however that looks, which is to say it isn't going to look like it used to, and we're not entirely sure what it is going to look like, and being okay with that. We're figuring it out together. We're in this together. It's a little bit gray, but directionally we know where we need to go. And then you kind of say in the key things of it's inclusive, bringing people together. It's creating a level of safety to have that kind of conversation. And then there's some deep belonging that's taking shape.
You know, man, what I've seen so much of is in every conceivable industry that I can think of, there's change occurring. There's change that's happening in the automotive space right now. There's change that's happening in manufacturing. There's change that's happening in supply chain. There's change that's happening in farming and agriculture. There's change that's happening in healthcare. And that level of change feels uneasy. Yeah. I get it. Yeah, I'm uneasy about it too. Like I got to learn some new things. I got to do things a little bit differently. And I think to the degree that we can foster opportunities for people to really belong, have a deep sense of purpose in their work, and understand that deep meaning of their work, I think it helps build a sense of safety around those things that I can influence and I can control, because so much of the world right now rooted in things that I can't control. But work can give us that sense of purpose in a way that helps transform our lives. And help us live into that better person, that better place. And I think culture is a part of that fabric for sure.
To me, fundamental. Yeah. Like when I feel safe and connected and I have shared purpose with others, anything's possible. But when those things are gone, I'm a boat adrift on the ocean, right?
Yeah, and you're isolated probably as well. I mean, and our early research throughout COVID suggested there were a lot of people that were isolated. And almost 60% of the population that we talked with reported that they were chronically to moderately stressed. And not like I had a bad day at work, but like I'm so stressed that sometimes it's debilitating for me, and it's nudged decisions because I'm feeling so overwhelmed and stressed sometimes. The antidote to that, if there's a vaccine to that, it was purpose and belonging. And purpose and belonging weren't just like nice to have things, but when people said that, really three things: I feel supported by my supervisor, I feel supported by my coworkers, and the work that I do is meaningful. When people could answer positively to those three questions, it mitigated the impact of stress in their work, because stress and engagement can live in the same place at the same time. And we just have to think about time when we've been really engaged in a cool project and we've dug in, and man, time has flown by, and it's a little stressful because we're under a time deadline, and I don't know, and I'm kind of amped up about it, right? But we're still engaged. Isolation is completely different.
Yeah.
I'm disconnected. Yeah. I'm not seen. I'm not heard. I'm not valued. My gifts aren't welcome here. I can't raise my hand. And whether or not those things are physically true doesn't matter. The perception of those things lives in our minds, then it matters to that person. Yeah. And that's why we have got to find ways to drive purpose and belonging and work in new and different ways in this new environment.
And that really is the spirit and intention of Work Vitals, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing, though, Brad. We've talked about the individual experience and the heaviness and the profound kind of impact, existentialism of all of that. There's another side of the coin, and the flip side is all of the HR professionals who've been working their tails off, doing everything they can to try to plug the holes in the boat, because not only are they going through it as a human being, in their organizations, they're dealing with that same layer cake of the pandemic and health and we're all remote, and are people happy being remote? Are they depressed? And then now we have great resignation, and we don't have enough people to run the ship. Who do we get in to help run? Like, that's a profound heaviness on the folks of HR. And one of the intentions behind this survey is to say, we think, despite all the amazingness of the HR field and the good people who work their tails off, maybe, just maybe, culture is bigger than HR now. And that's not a bad thing. It's just so different. We may have to look at it differently.
Yeah, no. Absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine getting a phone call on a Thursday afternoon that says on Monday, we will pivot our entire workforce to remote. Can you put some policies and procedures in place to make sure this happens smoothly? What? What?
No way.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
We're going to close the office down? What?
Yeah.
Huh? And then to have to manage that, and then and also do all of the other things. And by the way, your kids are coming home. If you were a mom or a dad at that time, your kids are now home.
Yeah.
And if you have a partner or a spouse or somebody who lives with you, they likely transition home too. And so now you're like, I don't even know what's happening in my life right now, but I've got to manage this. I remember a couple of months ago, I was really honored to present at our Kentucky State SHRM conference here in Louisville, Kentucky. And as people filed in, man, like you could feel it in the room. It was, first of all, it was the first in-person event that I had been a part of in a really long time. And I was noticing it was just good to see other humans. But as we got started, you could tell, like, all right, here's one more thing I got to do. Here's one more thing I got to think about. This guy is going to stand up at the front of the room today, and he's going to tell me one more thing that I got to manage and one more data point that I got to pay attention to. And so, man, before we got started, I just kind of looked around the room and I acknowledged the work, and I said thank you. Listen, for many of the people who are in the room today, the last 18 months you haven't stopped. Last 24 months you haven't stopped yet.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to know that at least for that 90 minutes, that they were going to be in a place where there was no expectation for them. They could just take a breath. They could just be for a minute. This was a place where they could be safe. And as I looked around the room, you could see people had tears coming down the room. They were relieved in the moment because maybe for the first time in a long time, they were in a place where there wasn't anybody that expected an answer from them. And it was at that moment where we could have an honest conversation about culture.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have the walls up. We didn't have, all right, what's coming off the to-do list so that I can do this other thing here, right?
Yeah.
And that to-do list could be my personal life too. Like I may be knocking out this soccer game, or I may be knocking out this dinner. I may be knocking out this weekend. But instead, we could have a conversation about how big culture was, how culture was ready for its Moneyball moment, how data analytics, predictive analytics that were nuanced and really contextually sensitive to the culture of the company. Not a one size fits all. Not something somebody pulls off the shelf.
Yeah.
But somebody who sits down, has a conversation with you, learns your story, digs in with you, and then creates something that allows you to drive meaning in your company. Yeah, man, people were in for that. And we had a transformative conversation. And I've been in conversations before where it's transactional, right? It's just, you give this and I give this, and you give this and I give this. This was totally different. It was by far one of the best experiences that I've had with a group talking about something that is right now, it's huge. It's currency.
Yeah. And always, those moments, in my experience, are always marked and distinctive because of depth, authenticity, transparency, and emotion. All those things, every time, just it's a whole different conversation. The heart is present in the room, and people, as you said, kind of let their hair down. Kind of, I need to be honest right now. Tears coming out of my eyes that I can't carry all this. It's too much.
Well, and I don't want to paint the picture here that the whole conversation was rainbows and unicorns, because it wasn't. There was frustration.
Yeah.
And there was bitterness. And for some folks, there was concern and anxiousness. And we just talked about that.
Yeah.
And when you're in a space where you can have these conversations, man, again, like it goes back to like when I feel like I belong here, when I'm connected to something and what I'm doing right now has a deep sense of purpose and meaning. I don't just want to be here. I'm choosing to be here.
Right.
And I think that's the great reevaluation. We see the great resignation and the and all these movements. I think the great reevaluation is, where am I going to choose to spend my time and my energy? And what is the cost for that? And what am I willing to give up for that cost? And in that particular conversation, it was, we're choosing to be here. We're going to have these conversations that are really authentic and sometimes difficult, but I'm willing to do it because I see deep meaning and purpose. And I think for culture right now, belonging and purpose are the currency of culture. And leaders who cultivate that, man, they create special places.
And that's what people are longing for, that special place, that place to feel those things. But this also ties back to your broader work, right? So we are in this honeypot you're a data scientist and a professor, and this is the work that you do and you deeply care about. And all of a sudden the world drops this serendipity in your lap. And now you can study these work determinants of health while we go through this crazy time. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's fair. And I want you to know like how much I love hearing you say work determinants of health. I absolutely am in love with that. We have for a very long time believed that there was a connection that we could see between work and health. And honestly, I only need to ask you or anybody, any of our viewers who are watching this today or listening to this, about a really bad month of work or a really bad year of work and what it was like at home. I mean, what were your meals like? What was your sleep like? What was your energy levels like? What was your stress levels like? Did you have headaches? Did you have manifested pain? Did you itch in places? And you're like, I don't know why I'm itching. This is crazy. And anecdotally, we know that, right? Like I've been in those places too. And I've also been in those places, in all seriousness, where I've looked at my wife and said, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm crazy here. And my mental health was probably at its absolute lowest point at that moment. And I'm thankful that I'm married to someone who sees a better person than me and was like, listen, let me tell you, it's not you. It's this place that you're spending all this time and you got to get out of this rat hole. And I was like, okay, all right, baby, you got it. We, for a very long time, I believe that we could show that connection statistically. And we're finally at a place where anecdotally we know this, but we're going to be able to point to the science. And we're going to be able to say, you know what? When you work at a place where the workload is unmanageable, or you work with a leader who is dysfunctional, or you work with colleagues who are unsupportive, or you work in a place where you don't have role clarity and you don't understand expectations, that it puts you at risk for long-term chronic disease, things like hypertension and heart disease, the ability to manage things like diabetes, physically manifested pain. Man, people have told us in some of the preliminary research that we've done that they physically manifest pain in their body.
Wow.
As a result of some experiences of work. And that is amazing to me. And the idea, because here's what we'll do with this. If we can isolate those experiences, man, we can solve for those. And if we can solve for them, we can remedy those situations in a way that help people live better lives through their work, not just go to work. Work is this place where we go and there's this transaction. It becomes this place where we go, where we can thrive as a human being. We get to learn and be better and contribute and have purpose and connect to a community. Those are the places that we want to create. And I believe that people who work in places where they can raise their hands in meetings, where they can belong, where they know that they're included, where they can engage, those people fundamentally live different lives. And I
totally agree.
That more.
Well, and Brad, what you're saying is so beautiful, and it really is the evolution. Is so for so long, HR tools and culture tools have been sort of macro kind of big bucket, bland tools. And what you're saying, and rightfully so in this new world, is we have got to get down. We'll give you the macro too, but we've got to get down and understand what's going on at the individual level.
Yeah. What's the story being told? What's the individual level story being told here? And as we weave those individual stories together, what is the tapestry that we begin to see materialize? And what are the unique shades? You know, one of the things some people will ask me sometimes, like, tell us the top 3 things we need to do to drive engagement. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it is, because every company, every culture is a little bit unique, and we're telling those stories. We're telling stories that empower the organization to drive a culture that not only delivers on a value proposition, but delivers on its value promise. Value proposition is getting you in the door. What makes you amazing and cool? I want to go work in this place. A value promise is, what does it look like when I get inside? We want to help people deliver on that promise.
Yeah. And having real data that we're, I guess, passing as the doors are open for us to explore and experiment and co-create this new world. Naturally, it makes sense for us to do the same with culture.
Yeah.
Let's dig deeper. Let's use and illuminate new information so we can turn that into insights and have a more profound effect on the joy and happiness and fulfillment and inclusivity inside of these organizations. So, in fact, you're talking about, you have a whole piece on Thursday, right, as part of this launch, right?
Yeah, totally. Thursday, we'll be talking all about work determinants of health, connecting it back to culture, really kind of digging into what we know and what we're learning now, and what we think we're going to be able to project and forecast about how we help people have healthier lives and how work is really, really impacting that right now.
I love it. So if this conversation speaks to you, if it touches your heart or pisses you off, great. We want you in the conversation. I don't care what your title is. I don't care what your position is. I don't care what level. I don't care what company. I don't care what industry. If you feel connected to this conversation, click on this link, take the survey, give us your honest feedback, and then come back and spend some more time with us. Definitely come and hang out on Thursday when Brad is talking about his work determinants of health, and just be a part of the great unfolding of where culture's headed. Brad, thank you so much for joining me in this conversation.
Nate, it was amazing. Thanks for your time. Thanks for digging into this with me. I cannot wait to see where this goes, man.